episode 3 of Are You a Saint? Today we're going to be focusing on decisions, what it means to make a decision, what is a decision, what goes through our minds when we do make decisions. The reason I chose this topic today is, of course, partly because I just made the decision to drop out of college. And just because it's a very consistent theme in my, and I'm sure a lot of your guys' spiritual journeys as well. You know, we really suffer during that process of deciding. If you knew every decision you were going to make, right? You never had to question which path to take. Then would we ever really have conflict? What I'm trying to point to is, oh hey, welcome to the chat. What I'm trying to point to is that the answer to your suffering is in the very act of making decisions. It's not about perfecting your ability to decide between one choice or another. It's about watching this process of deciding, of picking between one side or the other. When you sit with that process of making a decision and you see it unfold, you realize that the ego itself, the feeling of being separate, is most prevalent during that action of picking a side. Because when you pick between one path and another, you have to apply your knowledge. You have to apply what you've learned and what you want, right? If I'm choosing between an apple and a banana, all of a sudden I now have to fall back on my memories of which fruit I enjoy the most. You know, if I close my eyes and remember all the times I've eaten apples and they've been more positive than when I've eaten bananas, then I'm going to pick an apple. You see how that decision comes from memories, comes from the story we tell ourselves about ourselves. This story of, I'm someone who likes apples. I'm someone who likes bananas. Someone in the chat is asking or saying that they've been so much more present, it feels like they can make choices that will apply in the future. So you're almost saying that you can kind of see the flow of life better because you're less attached and you're more present. So all of a sudden you can kind of predict which choice will end up having the best outcome in the future. Now I'd say I agree with that. I mean, when you are so present that you're not really concerned with what happens and what happened in the past, then you kind of just feel which path is the better one, per se. It will get you to somewhere more desired. But that still doesn't change this fact of having to choose between one side or another. Try it right now. Close your eyes and try to try to pick between two colors that you like. Let's say you like both the colors blue and green, almost equally. And now you have to pick between one. You have to pick one that'll be your favorite color forever. You can't change it. Try to decide. Try to pick one over the other. Notice how it feels like you are the one mentally weighing both options. There's this mental effort, this engagement with the issue, and an attempt to figure something out. As you run through your mind, weigh the pros and cons, feel what it feels like to be the person who's deciding. Feel what it feels like to be the one weighing the options. See if you can find a difference between you and the action of having to deliberate and make a choice. As you sit in that feeling, sit in that precipice of one decision over the other, just notice what it feels like to be the one who needs to make a decision, who's weighing their choices. Just try it. The question you ask yourself or the decision you come to isn't as important as the actual feeling of being the one who's making a choice, picking a path. Do you also feel like you have to turn your thoughts on? I have to turn mine on or else it's empty. Who is the one turning your thoughts on? Who is the one saying, I'm going to think now? Is that you who chooses to turn on thoughts, not another thought? When you try to find where thoughts end and the supposed thinker begins, you can't really find that dividing line. You know, it's not so black and white where the thinker ends and the thoughts begin. Just try and find that line, see if you can find it. But ultimately, the thoughts create the thinker. The belief that there is someone who thinks, that belief brings about this ego, this feeling of being a center, of being someone, choosing choices, thinking thoughts, making decisions. You know, that sense of you, that sense of being the person making choices, comes from these thoughts we have, the stories we tell about ourselves. If I snap my fingers and you all of a sudden just had no thoughts, and ever again, just no thoughts, would you still exist? Would the one who decides still exist without thought? Life will never stop throwing difficulties at you. You'll always have choices to make. You can never live a life with no choices. There's always one path and another. Don't get rid of the choices. Don't dull your mind to the point where there is no choice. Try to find out who craves one choice over the other. Try to find out who is attached to the outcome to such a degree that they feel the need to choose and worry about making the wrong choice. I go to Chicago in like a few days. I'm gonna go camping tomorrow. I'm gonna film it too. And then after I go camping, I'm gonna head home and then fly out to Chicago. Very excited to start this whole journey. Although it's already started, right? If our ego is a part of the ocean, is it possible to be aware of something else as much as we are mind and body? When you say, when you say, is the ego part of the ocean? When you say the ego is part of the ocean, that immediately implies that there is an ego and that it's a part of something greater, which still creates separation in a way, right? There's now the ego, and then the ocean it's a part of. There's the wave, and the ocean it's a part of. Now there's two things, but that's just a stage in the realization journey. True realization is when the wave is seen as not separate from the ocean because it's just an extension of it, an extension of water. The ego is just another aspect of awareness, of life, of this moment. And nothing needs to be done for it to be brought into awareness. It already is. It's just a little bit foggy. Thank you, I'm excited too. There definitely is a separation between good and evil. But who decides? You say there's a separation, there's good and evil. This goes back to the concept of choice we started with. Who is choosing between good and evil? You know, I just had this debate on my page about eating meat. One person says eating meat is bad, and one says it's good. There's no definitive good or bad. Good or bad is just depending on the person who makes that distinction. There's no 100% right answer to most questions. So instead of struggling so much to pick the one that will benefit you the most, question yourself while you're deciding. Question yourself. Ask, who is so intent on one choice over the other? Who cares so much about the outcome? You wouldn't stress so much about decisions if you weren't so attached to one outcome. You know, if you were fine with things going either way, you wouldn't even have a decision to make. You would just let it happen. Notice that. Yeah, I mean, decisions. If you said an apple is red, could that be wrong or right? Well, to us, an apple is red. But to someone in Mexico, the apple is rojo, right? The word saying the apple is red means nothing to someone who doesn't already believe that red means this shade of color. So it still ends up relying on the realm of perception. But when I talk about feeling what it feels like to make a choice, you only have a choice to make when it's something that's not 100% true. Like an apple is red, of course, but there's no decision-making process there. But when you ask yourself a question that's harder to answer, like, do I like the taste of apples? All of a sudden you're thrown into this process, this stressful experience of having to decide one over the other. And when you do that, just feel what it feels like to be stuck between one decision and the next. Choice implies freedom, right? Being able to choose between one and another is freedom. When we talk about free will, we imply that this means there is choice. There is the ability to choose. But all of our choices come from our conditioning and our genetics, right? Like again, if I was raised eating red apples, I'm partial to red apples. So do I really have free will, the choice to choose between a red apple and a green apple? Or was that choice taken from me because my memories of red apples are more pleasant? So I'm naturally going to eat the red one. If we truly accept the concept of karma, as everything that happens was always going to happen, that takes that edge off choice. It takes this fear of, I'm alone in the world, I need to navigate my way through it by making the right choices. When you take that fear away, because you know that everything that happens was meant to happen, you know that you'll be at peace no matter the circumstance, no matter the outcome, then all of a sudden, there's no more choice. There's no more quote unquote free will. But there's the freedom to just live without fear, without constantly trying to pick between one side and the other. Do you believe that life is predetermined? If you say that every choice is already present? With free will, I always ask the question, if our souls or awareness were swapped at birth, no, I'll answer any question. If our souls or awarenesses were swapped at birth, would we have each other's personalities? Or would we be different people, even though we were raised the same, have the same genetics? Just our awareness was swapped. Your answer to that question is the answer to whether or not everything is predetermined. Ooh. Whether or not we have free will. You know, when you guys see this podcast, whether it's on Spotify, if I ever get to uploading it there, or on YouTube, feel free to leave a comment of like a topic you'd like me to cover. You know, I'd love to talk about anything really, whatever you guys are interested in. I know time doesn't exist, but how come sometimes some things happen at what seems like the perfect timing? Things happening at the perfect timing, like coincidences, doesn't imply the concept of time, because those coincidences are happening in the present moment, right? Even when something seems like it happened at the perfect time, it'll always happen in the present moment. Nothing ever happens at a moment that isn't this present one, right? Even when you worry about the past or think about the future, you're doing that in this moment, in the present moment. You can't think about a memory in a moment that isn't this one. But I think that's honestly a pretty good topic to talk about. I'll probably talk about the concept of time in the next podcast, whenever that is. I got to get a better schedule set up. If you guys do ever want to know when the next podcast is happening, live on Twitch, go to my profile, twitch.tv/ZuckerAbuddy. I'll have it put in the bio, the time of the live. But definitely join, ask some questions in the chat. If you guys want to go a little deeper or support me in any way, my website, zuckerabuddy.com, is there for you guys. My DMs are always open on Instagram. I'm going to end the live stream here. Oh, I'll answer this question actually as we end it. You say that these answers don't work day to day. Innocent people suffer, and you think we should care and prevent bad things from happening. I'm not saying that you shouldn't act to prevent these bad things from happening, but you need to accept that they are happening. You need to accept the reality of life as suffering. People are suffering right now. And act from that. Don't imagine a world where there aren't difficult things happening. You need to accept and love life, even with all the difficulty, even with all the suffering. and then act from there. All love, guys. I think I'm going to end it here. I'd like to figure out a way to trim these so I can stay live longer, but this is plenty long for the podcast, I think. Yeah, all love, guys. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. Sorry these are a little bit shorter. Yeah, definitely DM me if you feel like you can help out. All love, guys. Take care. See you guys next time. Yeah, thank you guys in the live chat.